G'day there guys, Markee again, back at it with another episode of r/Am I the A-hole? Bet you weren't expecting that one, ha! If you want to skip the intro, there's timestamps in the video, just click to that first indent on the timeline and you'll get to the bloody stories. As always, I want to thank you, the viewer, for watching the video. I love you, and thank you for dedicating your time to listen to me, and hopefully falling asleep to me because a lot of people like doing that apparently. Also, huge shout out to my channel members and Patreon subscribers. Just like Mark Narrations, I will be putting you guys on screen in a hot second. I just am lazy, I'm sorry. But know that my love for you is eternal, because you guys are cool. I just wanted to put that out there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get on to the episode. Our first post is by user Coolest Throwaway 4, titled, Am I the asshole for making my daughter sleep in a tent? So I, 34 female, am a single mother to 2 girls, Jasmine, 16 female, and Jessica, 14 female. Their dad died when I was pregnant with Jess, and I had to work hard. We hit rock bottom, and I was barely making paycheck to paycheck, but I managed to get a degree, become successful, and we live well. Point is, I know how fucking hard it is to be at the bottom of society, and my daughters know this, which is why I was livid at my daughter's actions. Yesterday, Jasmine showed me a video of Jessica cussing a homeless man out and telling him, "Stop asking me for money. You'd earn it yourself if you weren't so fucking lazy and spending what you earned on substances." When the homeless man complained about the cold, "We live in northeast England," Jessica responded, "Yeah, people camp for fun, even in December. You can't complain, you're living someone's holiday." Fury was an understatement for what I felt, as I thought I had raised an empathetic daughter. Along with finding the homeless man and making her apologize and help pay for a hotel room for a night for him, she paid £20, as well as signing her up to volunteer at a food bank, I decided to take her up on her offer of sleeping outside. I locked her bedroom door so she couldn't go in, put a sign on it saying "closed for the holidays", pitched a tent in the garden, and filled it with blankets and the sleeping bag that I used when I was camping in Norway on a family holiday as a teen, aka really bloody thermal. I slept in the room closest to the garden for that night, so I was nearby if anything was to go wrong. She was reluctant to do it, but chose it over the option of not having access to her phone until the Christmas holidays are over. In the morning, she was crying about how horrible it was to wake up on a cold mat and get disrupted sleep due to birds. After comforting her, I asked her would she like to do that every day like the homeless man. It struck a chord with her, and she was crying over her actions, while even after the £20, she was rolling her eyes, and her apology was not sincere. This afternoon, I came home from work to Jessica making a big meal to donate to the homeless people who live on the road near our house. I was proud of how she turned over a new leaf, and after taking the food to the people, my sister came over. Apparently my nephew and Jessica were talking at school, and he asked her about her plans for the afternoon, and she said that she was going to cook for the homeless. My nephew asked what triggered that, and Jess told him everything, which he relayed back to his mum. My sister said that my punishment was too harsh, and just the £20 in the food bank would have done the trick, and I was acting irrationally due to my past. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Am I the a-hole? I think it's understandable that someone would have a reaction like that because maybe they're not getting the full story from their child who's relaying this information to them. And I think it's fair enough to want to get the full story from the person that gave out that punishment and see what reality is. Seeing as though we have the full story from the get-go here, I agree with OP's actions, and I think it was a fair punishment. It wasn't torturing the child, it was just subjecting them to the same conditions that these homeless people do so that you have some bloody empathy, because once you've been in a terrible position, you're more grateful for the fortune that you have in your life, no matter how big or how small that fortune is. I think that Jess learnt her lesson here, and she even took it upon herself to make food for the homeless people living on that same street. I think that's great. I think that's a champion effort. That's a proven personal growth right there. And I don't think enough people do that these days. I think that's a rare example where on Am I the Asshole, someone improves dramatically in a short period of time. And I just love these stories where this happens. I would say good on OP for teaching the lesson whilst also being very safe about it and ensuring the daughter's safety. Not the a-hole. Deed42 says, not the arsehole. Sounds like the apology and £20 wasn't enough. Walking a mile in their shoes taught her empathy. This. I would also like to point out that OP also gave her daughter a choice, either a learning experience or a punishment, losing her phone for break, and I feel like that made it even better. Her daughter could have ended up just resenting it if she had been forced to sleep in the tent with no option, but because she chose it, it had more impact. Also, the sleeping bag and the blankets, and the camping experience, and the comforting her bringing up emotional sting? Like, there are a lot of details that make this story okay. Honestly, I was ready to say you're the a-hole at just the title, which may be all the details that just got relayed in this game of telephone. OP, honestly, just send them this post with the real names and details. If they don't understand, stop caring about their opinion, cause they're just here to start drama. OP even pitched the tent for her, and didn't wake her up in the middle of the night to make her move the tent like police would do to the homeless, and gave her what sounds like a good sleeping bag, which most homeless people won't have, and a bunch of blankets. I've been camping around this time of year, and live in New England, so similarly cold as OP, and having a winter sleeping bag makes all the difference in comfort. OP could have been more realistic, but still made a point as it stands. I bet the daughter will think twice before insulting strangers again. Sunshine Massacre, Jesus, says, not the a-hole. You did a good thing here. You weren't being cruel or unusual in any way. You provided her blankets and a warm sleeping bag, and you didn't force her to do anything. You gave her the option to camp or lose her phone. She clearly learned the lesson and feels genuine remorse. You should be proud of how you handled the situation, and proud of your daughter for changing ways. So, what do you guys think of this situation? How would you have punished Jess to get her to learn her lesson? Would you have done the same thing that OP did here? Do you think OP was too harsh with making her sleeping outside, or do you think what she did was the perfect balance between the two? I'd love to know your opinions down in the comments. Our next post is by user Am I the Asshole Throwaway 2542, titled, Am I the asshole for not punishing my stepson for what he said to my daughter? I, 45 male, and my ex split 8 years ago. I met my current wife during our divorce and married her pretty quickly after it was finalized. I now live with my wife, 41 female, and stepson, 16 male. And while my ex offered 50-50 custody of our daughter, 15 female, I felt it better she stay with her mother so I could adjust to life with my new wife and stepson. So she came every other weekend before the pandemic. She's been with her mum since March. Here is where the issue comes in. My stepson feels threatened by my daughter when she's here. I'm the only father figure he's ever had, and he doesn't like sharing my attention. So he's often quite rude and mean to her. We normally just assure her it's because he's insecure. My stepson came home yesterday, cheerfully saying that my daughter said she'd never come here again. I called my daughter to ask why she'd say that. According to her, my stepson has been saying since school resumed that I picked him over her, and that I hated her coming to visit, and how everyone was so happy these months she didn't visit. No one wanted her there, and she needed to just stay away from us. He denied it, of course, but my daughter's friend filmed him at some point. Gotta love the age of smartphones, and sent it to me. When confronted, he got watery-eyed and said he was just afraid of losing me. I told my daughter that I obviously didn't feel that way, and he just felt threatened by her presence. She asked if I was going to actually do something about his behavior this time, or if I was just going to brush it under the rug like I always did. I told her I didn't brush anything under the rug, but I wasn't just going to punish him for being insecure about losing his father figure. She told me she was tired of his daddy issues being an excuse to treat her like shit, and since I wouldn't stand up for her, she wouldn't be visiting again. I tried to talk to my ex about it, but she said I picked him over her repeatedly and never stood up for her when he treated her poorly, so I don't get to play the victim now that she's fed up with it. I think they are both being oversensitive here, and my daughter needs to get over it and visit again. But my brother said I let my stepson boost my ego and failed my daughter by not standing up for her. My nephew suggested I post here. Am I the a-hole? The one sentence there that really stuck out to me that shows me where your head is at, OP, is, I think they're both being oversensitive here, and my daughter needs to get over it and visit again. In what fucking universe did you draw that conclusion from this situation? You have video evidence of your stepson bullying your daughter, and you're saying that she's being oversensitive, and she needs to get over it and visit again. Like how? What neurons in your brain fired in the right order there and said, you know what? Stepson's chill. He's being sensitive, she's being sensitive. This is just teenage drama. There is no problem here. As they say, smile on my face, there is no war in Ba Sing Se. And as 1984 put it, reality exists in the human mind and nowhere else. God, your reality must be a fun one, OP. You are a real piece of work. You're the a-hole for that sentence alone. I thought you were on your daughter's side, but I think your brother is right here. You are actually on your stepson's side, and I wouldn't blame your daughter for not wanting to come over again, because I sure wouldn't if that's how I'm going to be treated in this household. Grow up, apologize to your daughter, punish the stepson, and get a fucking grip with reality. You're the asshole. Wicked Lucky 214 says, you're the asshole. You did pick your new family over her, and then repeatedly leave her needs and emotions out of the equation. Him turning down 50-50 custody to weekend visits so he could adjust to life with his new wife and stepson really said it all. And leaving it that way for nearly 8 years. For real, how much time do you need to adjust? Absolutely you're the a-hole, and dismissed his behavior. I feel so bad for your daughter. I agree. The stepson keeps playing the I don't want to lose you card, and OP keeps falling for it. The daughter should have come first. He only thought of himself. He married his wife before the ink was even dry on his divorce papers. They didn't even give the kids time to get to know them first. All they cared about was themselves. OP is an asshole father. He's turned his back on his daughter for his manipulative stepson. If he truly was having issues, then why in 8 years have they not gotten him therapy to deal with it? Instead, they encourage his behavior by allowing him to control the relationship between OP and his daughter. OP, you are a huge asshole and a terrible father. Your daughter is going to cut you off. Thea M says, yep, you're the asshole. How do you not see this? Do you prefer stepson because he's a boy? It sounds like you're picking him first again and again. You even rejected 50% custody of your own kid. How is this a mystery to you? And Scrappy Coco, I love Scooby-Doo, says, yo, you're the asshole for sure, man. You won't even stand up for your daughter when she is being bullied. Kid was right. You are choosing him over your daughter, and I don't blame her. May her mum and God make sure she doesn't develop daddy issues. And now I turn it to you guys. What do you think of this situation? Do you think it reflects reality? Do you think OP is a mentally unstable man? Do you think he's misunderstood? Do you think that this is a not the arsehole situation and we're not getting the full scope of the picture here? I'd love to know what you would do in this situation, and if you've been faced with similar situations like this in the past or are currently going through something like this. Please do let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinion. Next story. And our next post is by user, the Sputnik Sweetheart, titled, Am I the asshole for kicking out my brother-in-law because he ate me out of house and home? Roll Tide. My husband and I bought a cabin in the woods and have been living there the last 2 months to fix it up. While we were gone, my brother-in-law and his girlfriend have been living at our house in the city because they recently moved to the area and wanted time to find a house. In exchange for a rent-free place to stay, all I asked of them was to keep the house in order and to stay out of the cellar, which is full of preserved food, and a chest freezer stocked with prepared homemade food. When we got back this afternoon, I went down there to grab something to defrost for dinner. But there was almost nothing because they cleaned out 75% of the freezer and most of the preserved food. I don't think they went grocery shopping a single time in 2 months. Everything is open here, and neither of them have any conditions that would preclude them from going out in public. I can't even put a number on how long I spent growing, fermenting, preserving, and cooking this food. I absolutely lost it on them and kicked them both out. My husband is smart and told his brother that what I say goes. But now my mother-in-law, fuck off, is on the case, telling me I overreacted and am an asshole because brother-in-law and his girlfriend don't know how to cook. Cut them a break. Like that's an excuse. I'm not down with this attitude. Personally, I don't think I'm the asshole in this situation. I want nothing to do with either of them until they apologize and pay for all of the food they ate. So, am I the asshole? I think we can tell by my interjectures, I think that they're not the asshole. Because, if it was just store-bought food and it was easy for you to make and replace and do all that, there might have been a middle ground a little bit there. It wouldn't have been so impactful. They still would have been assholes. But the fact that you grew, fermented, preserved, and cooked all that food yourself is an extra laying on this shit cake. I would be so personally offended by them doing this. Not only did I let you live in my house rent-free, but you've gone and just shit on everything that I love and everything that I prepared for in the future? No, you're on my bloody red list. I'm going to burn down your house when you buy that one. God help me, I will raise heaven and earth to get back at you bastards. But no, for real, they could have snuck 1 or 2 meals, but eating 75% of food, which was 2 months worth of saved up food. Oh my god, these are terrible people. I cannot blame you for this. Screw your mother-in-law, she's an enabler, you need to cut her out of your life, and I would say cut these 2 people out of your life. That's like irredeemable behavior. Give them a 6-month rest, tell them, hey, you're not being in contact with us anymore, buddy, fuck off. If it were me, I would go straight for the scorched earth tactic because this would just shake me to my core. Not the asshole. And there's also a mini update from OP in this one. Thank you to everyone for convincing me I'm not unreasonable to be this pissed off over chicken pot pie and sauerkraut. My husband is now just as pissed off as I am and have agreed to not engage with his mother and brother any longer. I have a written inventory of what was down there, so we invoiced brother-in-law, and so far he isn't responding, which is not surprising. Apparently, my cooking is delicious enough to destroy your relationship with your only sibling, so at least I have that going for me, which is nice. Very nice, I like. Grizzle the Bean says, quote, brother-in-law and girlfriend don't know how to cook, cut them a break. Do they know how to order takeout? Do they know that the grocery store also sells fermented and prepared frozen food? They got a place to stay rent-free while they looked for their own place, so they certainly had the money to buy their own food. You specifically asked them to stay out of your stash, and they cleaned you out anyway. Not the asshole, and mother-in-law can kick rocks. Edit to add, I hope you ban them from the using of the cabin until and unless they A, pay you back, and B, apologize. Lishmiser says, oh my god, is it enabling mothers jumping in when they're not needed and defending the useless grown sons who are shocked when there are consequences? Day on Am I the Asshole? Your mother-in-law doesn't get a say in this dispute. She's not the one who preserved all that food, and she's not the one who violated the stay out of the cellar condition. It's okay to block her for a while. She has shown that she has nothing of value to say to you, and she can get hold of your husband if it's a real emergency. Your brother-in-law is clearly in the wrong here. He broke the one condition you had for him living rent-free, and now he has to handle the consequences. Send him a bill for the food and time spent preparing it. Your time is valuable too, and you should be compensated for that loss as well. Pedantic Platypode says, not the a-hole at all. You, very generously, gave them a place to stay with a tiny stipulation that they leave your food alone. They didn't even respect you enough to follow that one request. Fuck them both. Also, I thought this post was going a very different way before I read the of house and home at the end of the title, Lamau. Wallflower Heart says, not the a-hole. You had one rule for them staying in your home rent-free and they broke it. You were not being unreasonable and your reaction wasn't unfounded. I'm glad your husband backed you up. I imagine that the husband was smart enough not to get in the middle of this because it wouldn't have ended well for him. And Swissvit says, not the a-hole, but your brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and mother-in-law definitely are. You had one rule for crying out loud, and not even a crazy one. Your husband sounds awesome. I would work towards distancing yourself from that whole side of the family. They sound like a bunch of whiny users. If they ever ask you for a favor again, be sure to remind them exactly why they're not getting it. And after all these threads with in-laws on here, it's nice to see the husband standing with his wife and not his mama. And what do you guys think of this one today? Would you have done the same in this situation as I said I would, going this full screw you guys, I'm gonna burn everything to the ground approach? What would you have done differently? Do you think OP's the a-hole for this one or not the a-hole? I'd love to hear your ideas, your crazy, weird and wonderful stipulations in the comments. Our first post is by user Frustrated Am I the A-hole? Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to cook meat when my husband broke our lonely daughter's only friendship because he hates vegans? Obligatory throwaway because I don't want angry vegans in my inbox. My husband is from the South, and let me just say this, he hates vegans. His family is a stereotypical country one, and they get ridiculously mad when they see Beyond Meat, etc. advertisements on the TV. They're practically vegan-phobic and hate any menu which says sustainable for vegetarians or vegans, etc. This never really bothered me, and I thought it was funny because I ate meat, and I didn't think it was a big deal. My daughter, now 6, was born allergic to a lot of things, like eggs, and is also intolerant to lactose and grass, pollen, etc. She rarely got to go to birthday parties because we couldn't let her eat anything there. When she was a baby, my husband ate an egg sandwich and kissed her, and she broke out in hives, and we had to take her to the doctor. All new foods were tried under medical supervision. While she can eat meat, she can't eat any fun meat like nuggets because of egg contact. One of the kids she recently met with is our new neighbor who is around 4 houses away. They are completely vegan, and their son doesn't eat anything they don't. So at his birthday, she could eat the actual cake and not a muffin that I'd sent. It cheered her up and they had play dates even when they weren't supposed to. I was glad she made a friend. His parents hadn't called for a while and didn't pick up ours. When I saw his dad while I was out, I was like, hey, what's wrong? And he was really hostile, telling me to never talk to him or his wife again and that he'd pray for my daughter. I thought that was crossing the line. He pulled his phone out and showed me a very rude text from my husband. I didn't believe his story that my husband had started a fight, but when I asked him about it, he was proud that Shelia wasn't hanging out with hippies. I remembered the vegan hate, and I was like, until he apologized to that family and they agreed to let their kid play with ours, I would never cook meat again. He said I needed to get over it and do my job, but I am cooking, just not what he would like. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I will try to find couples counseling, although I don't think he'll agree to do it. I hope Ina forgives me, vegan mum, since this blew up. I'm really sorry and I won't bother you again. Thank you all for your responses. I'm gonna go with not the a-hole on this one. I don't see why he did that. This seemingly came out of nowhere, and He had enough time to realize that yes, this was a vegan family, and yes, I'm enough of a decent human that I won't go attacking people for their choices. This man knows he did wrong, this man knows he is in the wrong, but he's proud of that fact. And surely he knows he's only done damage to you and your daughter, and it's had a net negative impact on everyone. I don't see what he's accomplishing here than making himself feel better. Stupid motives, stupid actions by the husband. He's the a-hole here, and I don't think anyone else is the a-hole. I don't know what they could have done. I don't know what you could have done to be an a-hole. Oh no, you're not cooking meat. God, that's the work of the devil, isn't it? Screw that guy. Time and Entropy says, not the a-hole and what? A spouse telling me to do your job in reference to a household chore would put me right on strike. I wouldn't stop cooking meat for the guy. I'd stop cooking for him. He sounds like an objectively horrible person to be so callous towards your daughter's friendship and so proud of picking a fight and insulting others. Of course, the fact that you thought this kind of hatred was just sort of funny until it impacted your child makes me wonder a little bit about you. I know better now. Unfortunately, I never took it seriously. It's interesting that you were able to ignore him hating a group of people who were different just because you weren't part of that group. If I were a betting person, I'd guess that there are other groups he harbors hate for that you may have overlooked because you aren't one of them. Is that okay with you? Is that how you want to raise your child? This is an opportunity for you to grow and to start to care about people who are not like you and to realize that having hate for people different than you is wrong. I hope you take this opportunity. BeckDog19 says, not the a-hole. But I almost want to call you the asshole for staying with someone so nasty. Your husband literally ruined your daughter's one friendship over something insanely petty, and your only way of dealing with that is not cooking him meat? That sounds like an insane underreaction to me. Everyone sucks here because it's pretty clear OP doesn't actually care much to deal with her husband's behavior and defends him at every turn. Karen Hader12345 replies, she probably doesn't care about his actions other than this one. Probably for some reason that would make her an a-hole she isn't telling us. Sounds like she just has no idea what a good relationship looks like. I mean, she said she wasn't going to cook any meat, and he told her to get over it and do her job. This guy sounds like the type to think a particular kind of white tank top is high-tier fashion. And Typical Management 680 says, everyone sucks here except the vegan family and your daughter. I've read your comments, and you make so many excuses for your husband. You excuse his hate for vegans and his behavior until it personally impacted you. I wonder what else you excuse because it hasn't personally impacted you. Your husband is an a-hole for obvious reasons. As someone with an arsehole dad, but an okay mum who still defends my dad, your daughter will start to hate you just as much for defending this behavior. My dad started making fun of depression after I talked about a suicidal friend in his earshot. When I mentioned him being such an arsehole, my mum gave excuse after excuse. When I move out in a few months, I know I will not be talking to my dad anymore. And I also have half a mind to stop all contact with my mum as well, because she never defended me. You will have the same outcome with your daughter. Stop him now if you want a relationship with her. Yeah, I guess an everyone sucks here judgment makes sense after all. I'm not sure if any of these comments have changed your mind, but I feel personally they've changed mine. I guess I've never really encountered relationships like the mother is going through, so I can't completely talk on that, but it does sound like she is making excuses for the husband. It doesn't sound like a healthy relationship dynamic, and I hope that she can get some help. What would you guys do in this situation? What would you do differently? Do you blame OP for what they've done? And what's your judgment for this one? I'd love to know down in the comments. Quick heads up, skip to story 3 if you don't want to be subjected to some potential graphic imagery in your own head. Our next post is by user MaleficentFortune88, titled, Am I the a-hole for reporting my friend's miscarriage photos to Facebook? Throw away for obvious reasons. A friend announced a few months ago that she was pregnant. She and her boyfriend were very excited. We've been friends since childhood, and I was happy for her. I had a miscarriage 2 years ago, and it was pretty traumatic, so I'm mentioning that for full disclosure. When my friend would have been 15 weeks pregnant, she posted a graphic, gory photo of her miscarried fetus, saying she was devastated. Note the terminology, miscarried fetus, not stillborn baby. This pregnancy wasn't even close to viability, and it did not look like a baby. It looked like a shock image. The fetus looked like it had been dead a while and was sort of disintegrating. I was upset and grossed out, but simply offered my condolences and clicked hide on the first image. Then it got weirder. A few hours later, she and her boyfriend rolled out a bunch of bizarre photos where they were posing with this visibly decaying fetus in their hands, and one where she was kissing it. It looked like they were trying to replicate the photos that parents take with actual stillborn babies, but like they weren't even realizing that this was not the same thing. Actually got physically sick seeing the pictures where she was kissing it and reported all the photos to Facebook for graphic violence. Facebook removed them. She and her boyfriend have spent the last several telling everyone they could about how they were victimized and abused by Facebook, and how they had a beautiful, perfect baby, and someone thought their baby was graphic violence. And of course the obligatory, if you think my beautiful child is violence or gory, unfriend me now. The only reason I haven't unfriended her is because I'm realizing I might have been the a-hole, and I may owe her an apology, and may need to process through my repulsion on my own, rather than reporting someone to Facebook while they were grieving. No, I think if it was enough to warrant me giving a, trigger warning, disturbing images ahead, I think that's good enough for the rest of the populace that will have to be subjected to that on Facebook. I'm torn here. I can and I can't at the same time understand their reaction to saying, oh my god, unfriend me if you don't want to see it. Someone thinks my baby was graphic violence on Facebook. I don't really think there's a category on Facebook for reporting it and saying, I don't want to see this image and I don't think other people should. I feel like graphic violence is just an umbrella term for that. It definitely falls under the category of not safe for work, and I'm sure you wouldn't want children seeing that, and children are on Facebook. There's a bunch of reasons to want to have that taken down, and I think the reasons for it far outweigh the reasons against it. Therefore, it's good that it remains anonymous on who does it so that they don't hate you. I don't think you should give yourself up in this situation, and I think you're not the a-hole for what you've done, OP. It's Good to Chalk says, not the a-hole. I started to feel sick reading this without even seeing the pictures. A miscarriage can be extremely distressing and take a toll on your mental health, but this just seems disturbing. Exactly. I was reading and went, ew. Holy crap. My mother had 2 miscarriages before me, so I know how traumatic it is. Oh, yikes. I went through this last week, and yes, it was deeply traumatizing. I can't imagine exposing people to photos. Good call on reporting it, but yeah, it can do a number on your mental health. So sorry that happened to you, sending hugs. StarFox92 says, whoa! Firstly, I would say not the a-hole. I know people grieve different ways, but that is a little shocking. Secondly, I've reported things on Facebook before, like mangled and bloody animals and hunting photos, images of dead bodies that I did not want to see, and they haven't gotten removed by Facebook because they didn't violate any terms and conditions. So if they actually got their pics removed, then you probably weren't the only person who reported it, and Facebook has to review all of those cases. Cypher Max says, not the a-hole. While it's clearly tragic that they lost their child, I don't think it's unreasonable that other people wouldn't want that appearing in their feed. I don't think you could have unfriended them and moved on, but Facebook, or the bot representing Facebook, clearly agreed that this was against the guidelines. One big reason that Facebook deletes violent and gory photos is that those images can trigger people with trauma, like OP. I'm sure that OP was not the only one that had an extreme reaction to those photos. She did the entire Facebook community a service by getting them deleted. Not the a-hole. Now I throw it back to you. I look down in the comments and I see there are some no a-holes here because people are struck by grief and they're not thinking straight and they kind of just want an out to express their grief. Stuff like, to them it probably feels no different than a stillborn photo shoot because they see it as a baby rather than just a non-viable fetus. This is a tricky one because I don't want to be calling someone that's had a miscarriage an asshole for their actions of posting it on Facebook. It's not that I think they are a-holes, I just think that what they've put on Facebook is inappropriate, and that kind of muddies the water of whether that is an a-hole action, they are a-hole people, or whether there is no a-holes here at all. I think I may agree with the no a-holes here judgment a bit more. What do you guys think of this one? What would you have done in this situation? Would you have just unfriended these people and left them to their devices? Would you have reached out to them and been like, hey, everything okay? Or would you have just reported it like OP did? And what do you think? Who's the a-hole here? And our next post is by user AmiTheA Project T, titled, Am I the a-hole for only crediting myself in a paired project, thus causing my classmates to fail? This happened a while ago, but my classmate is still mad at me for this, so I've decided to post here. I, 14 male, was assigned to do a school project with Jenna, 14 female, not her real name. This project was quite important because it would contribute to our final grade for the subject. I kept asking Jenna if she was free to come online to do the project together, / to do the project whenever she was free. But a day before the deadline, and she still hadn't done anything at all. I had done some parts and was waiting for her to do the rest, but on the day before the deadline, I got scared, so I finished the project by myself. I WhatsApped Jenna a long text on how annoyed I was that she didn't do the project despite countless reminders. She was apologetic and said she would check and edit my work. I'm not sure if she actually did this, but none of my work was edited. I checked before submitting. Originally, on the cover page, there was the title of the project and this line that said, Done by Jenna and my name. I edited the line to Done by my name and submitted it. My teacher asked why I only credited myself, and I told him that Jenna didn't contribute to the project. He asked to see our Google Docs edit history to prove that I did the whole project myself, and I showed it to him. Then he gave Jenna 0 out of 50, while I got 46 out of 50. Jenna ended up failing this subject as a whole because, as I said, this project was crucial on our final grade. She said I was an asshole for causing her to fail, and she said that she did check what I'd written, but didn't find anything wrong with it, so she didn't edit anything, and that she deserved a few marks at least for checking my work. Also, she has to go for holiday classes on this subject, plus take another test on the subject during the holidays, otherwise she wouldn't be promoted to the next level of education. She's really pissed that I was the one who made her have to go through all this. Am I the a-hole? Props to OP for not being a simp to Jenna. She got what she deserved in this situation. No free rides on group projects when you ignore all reminders to do it when you shouldn't have to be reminded in the first place, and then pissed off when you don't edit anything when you promised you're gonna do it. If Jenna's gonna get held back and she can't go to the next grade level, she deserves it. That's life's punishment and she's gonna get what she deserved. She did not deserve a few marks at least for checking their work because there is no evidence of it. If she wanted even a few marks, she could have gone in there, made her presence known, pretended she's editing stuff, and it would have shown up on the system. Yet she didn't. Aw, boo-hoo, you could have given me the easy out and I wouldn't have failed this when it's imperative to my bloody success. Damn, Jenna, that's crazy. That's so crazy, Jenna. Suck it up and deal with it over the holidays, Buttercup. At least you get a second chance. A lot of people don't. Not the a-hole OP. Faye Yellier says, Not the a-hole. She didn't do any work, therefore she rightly got no credit. As my Spanish teacher would say, don't be upset by the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do. Maddie215 says, Not the a-hole. The teacher asked for proof of the work product. You supplied it. The teacher made the decision of how to grade the project. Jenna caused her own failing grade. Good for you for standing up for your work and not being bullied into sharing credit with someone who didn't deserve it. Yup. If Jenna wants to claim credit for helping, she needs to prove it. No edits, no comments, lack of communication in text/mail. No reasonable person would think Jenna made a meaningful contribution given the lack of evidence. No proof of the work she supposedly did. She disagrees. It's up to her to prove it to the school. And even if she did edit it, she shouldn't get credit for that. The assignment wasn't one person do this project and the other person read through it real quick and see if they made any mistakes. If I was the teacher and OP showed me the edit history and there was literally nothing from Jenna until the 12 hours before everything was due, and then all she did was make a few edits, I'd still fail her. It's not a proofreading course after all. I would like to think that this situation is pretty cut and dry and obvious, but if you have any other opinions about this situation, any other judgments, and any other experience, I'd love to know down in the comments. Please tell me, I'm sure we could have a little healthy debate. And our last post today is by user ThrowRA009, titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my roommate's girlfriend because she hid my credit card and then claimed it was for my betterment? I, male 25, live with my close friend Josh, also male 25, and his girlfriend Anna, female 22. It used to be only Josh and I until the lockdown started back in March and Anna permanently moved in. I get along okay with Anna, but we're not super close. I guess that establishes the group dynamics. Yesterday, I couldn't find my credit card. Josh and I searched the entire apartment for 2 fucking hours, but we couldn't find it. Then walks in Anna, after her evening walk, and goes, "What are y'all up to?" To which I ask her if she's seen my credit card. She straight up says that, yep, she has it. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing with my credit card? To which she said that I shouldn't worry as she didn't intend to use my card. She only took it to help with my addiction. What addiction? She thinks I'm a shopaholic and that I buy way too much useless shit. She saw some movie the night before where the protagonist had this condition and shopped herself into a crazy debt. That movie reminded her of me. She said, and I quote, "You're not there yet, but you will be if someone doesn't intervene." I was pissed off at this point because, A, I do not have a shopping problem, and even if I did, I am using my money that I worked hard for to buy things I like. She's absolutely no one to try to poke her nose into my business, and B, her having my card meant that she came inside my room and snooped through my stuff until she found the card, which is a gross violation of my privacy. So I asked, rather loudly, to stay the fuck away from my things and that I would fucking call the cops on her if she ever tried pulling a stunt like this again. Josh was not aware of her stealing and he's siding with me. But Anna's trying to convince him that her intentions were pure and that I'm grossly overreacting and being a dick to her. Am I the a-hole? I think the 2 versus 1 side of this situation proves that Anna is actually the arsehole in this situation. If Josh is not backing her up and Josh knows what she's like, he obviously is aware that she has problems with pushing boundaries, and this is definitely a boundary being pushed. I do wonder what else is going on here, and I wonder if it's really the credit card that is the issue, or if Anna is using this as, a starting point for something else that she's further going to make a problem. If that makes sense, This is like the government making up conspiracy theories to hide some other bullshit that they're doing in the background, to, distract others about something deeper that's going on. Kind of weird that this had to even be posted, but I think it's obvious that OP is not the a-hole in this one. I probably would have reacted even worse than this because a credit card is not something you just steal. That's a huge offense, and OP could take it further if they wanted to. So yeah, not the a-hole. Lil Perdita Gatino says, not the a-hole. I would check your bank and credit statements and make sure you don't have any surprise charges. I don't believe for a second she didn't copy his credit card info. Treat it like it was stolen, because it was, and call the company/bank. 100% this. You don't need the card to use it. They have the right idea. Who the hell goes through another person's room to take their credit card? I highly doubt she would have said anything had OP and the roommate not been looking for it. Report it stolen, cut it up, and get a new card. I wouldn't trust the sneaky asshat as far as I could throw her. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. If I were you, I would reiterate the fact that police will be called. I would make a report without filing charges if this girl is still going to be around. This means a safe deposit box at the bank for vital information and electronic statements for finances. With any of that info, she can seriously do damage. The fact that she was so entitled and nonchalant makes me worried for you. Friend needs to put himself in your shoes. Does he see a long term with this gal? If he is, and willing to put up with this BS, he should be prepared to be manipulated and controlled at expense of any fleeting thought this girl may have. Scary. Our first post is by user RoutineJunket1040, titled, Am I the a-hole for selling my family home because my pregnant sister-in-law ate my dinner? I know, crappy title, but I'm in a rush to get to work, so excuse my grammar. Also, I want to point out that me and my brother have two different fathers. I, 19 female, lost my father last year to cancer. He left me 90% of his stuff, including his family home that was left to him by his dad, and it's been in their family for over 100 years. My brother, 34, and my dad didn't have a relationship, but he did leave him $10K. My mum was pissed at the will reading, but since she got $10K, she couldn't do anything about it. For the past year, me and her live okay together. She went on acting like it was her house like before, which I had no problem with, till in May, my brother and his girlfriend, 30, moved in, without even asking me. They are messy, entitled, and rude. I told them in July that I wanted them out by September because they don't pay for anything, nor wash a dish. In August, they announced they were pregnant, and my sister-in-law smugly said, "Guess we won't be moving out now." It didn't go down well, but when I told them I wanted them out, my mum and brother basically laughed in my face. Well, the past few months have been hell. They've become worse than before, and my mum enables it, and then demands me to treat my sister-in-law like a princess because she's pregnant. I once had to go outside McDonald's till they opened to get her a McMuffin. Well, here is where I may be the arsehole because my sister-in-law is pregnant, and she eats everything that she sees, like the cupcakes my friend made me for my birthday. She ate all 6, and I didn't even get to try them. I can't even make my lunch the night before work, because when I go to get it, it will be gone. And she'll have a smug look on her face while rubbing her belly, and then laugh and say, "I couldn't help myself. Blame the baby." If I put stuff in my room, my mum will open the door with the spare keys, and sister-in-law can go through my mini fridge. Well, a week ago, I was running late to college. I didn't have time for my breakfast or to make lunch, and I had to go to work straight after. So all I had that day was a bar of chocolate. When I got home, I was starving. I made myself dinner while it was cooling down, and I went to use the bathroom. I must have been in there 10 minutes at the most, because by the time I came out, she had 70% of my dinner ate, and I literally lost my shit, of course, and she started crying, and my mum and my brother started screaming at me for making her cry, making excuses like how she couldn't help it, and it was my fault for leaving food around her. Well, I had enough. I told them to get out, just like before, and I got mocked, but here's the thing. Back in October, my uncle offered me a life-changing amount of money for the house. I called him up crying a few days ago, explaining the situation, and he said he would buy the house, but he will evict my mum and brother. They, of course, didn't take it too well, and I've had to stay with a friend, but I've been receiving texts, and I'm being tagged in multiple posts on social media. I'm starting to think I'm the bad person now. So, am I the a-hole for making my mum and brother homeless? Edit? Wow, I expected a few comments, but wow. So I'm on a break and I'll address some things. Some of your roasts are hilarious and I honestly deserve it for how bad my grammar is, but I was walking to work and declining calls from my mum while making this post and I almost said fuck it and didn't post. If I sell the house to my uncle, I will lose 100k, but he's always been good to me, and it's one of those situations where I'd sleep better knowing it's gone to someone in my dad's family. My mum told me because of my age I wouldn't be taken seriously if I tried to evict them. And if I evict them and continue to live in the house along with the high financial costs, I don't think they'd ever let me live in peace. My mum has health issues and my sister-in-law will have to move in with her parents. They won't allow my brother, so I'd be splitting up a young family in my mum's words. And guys, I'm actually crying. I've never been told before, I'm proud of you. And the fact that I've seen a thread of comments telling that means the absolute world to me. Edit 2, I plan to meet a lawyer and will update you all as soon as I have news also. Since people are curious, the house is worth 2.5 million and it's in the heart of London. This story went all which ways, and I'm questioning now the uncle's motivations to buy the house. This isn't just some random house in America. This is a $2.5 million house in the heart of London. Was this not an attempt to, I don't know, get OP to sell the house for under market value so that the family picks up an asset? Because I can genuinely see something like this being a reality, and the uncle is in cahoots with these two. But then again, why would the uncle be in cahoots with them? Who knows? OP seems like someone that was just vulnerable in a situation and extending help to the rest of their family, in which their dead father did not like that family. I hope OP uses this money to move somewhere that they will not be abused by their family or by other people and make a better life for themselves. In regards to this situation, I'm going to go with not the a-hole. I don't think they deserved any of this. I think they're just caught in between a rock and a stupid place with this stupid family. Leviah Kane says, not the a-hole. They stomped all over you, man. They didn't treat you like family, so why should you treat them that way? You're fine, mate. Your uncle is the one evicting them, not you. And I would caution against making a decision as huge as selling a home when emotions are high. It sounds like a solid offer from your uncle, but speak with a realtor to ensure you're getting a fair offer. I would also highly recommend you get a plan in place for rolling the money into a stable investment that will last, whether it's a home or long-term investments. Also consider if you really want to permanently part with your father's home. You could always evict your brother and rent it out until a time that makes sense to live in. Edit. OP states the uncle is offering 100k less than estimated worth. This is a hit too large to take in my opinion, just to get rid of sister-in-law. If you can't stand up to them in your own home, are you going to be able to stand up to them when they beg and plead and lay on the emotional manipulation for the cash that you get out of the house? Jareth47 says, not the a-hole at all, and I'm very proud of you for standing up for yourself. Thank you so much. I might sound pathetic, but this made me smile. I've not heard the words proud of you my entire life. Wow guys, I'm actually crying. I have no idea how much this means. My family doesn't believe in even saying I love you to each other. Well then you can hear it twice. I am also very proud of you for standing up for your rights and no longer being pushed over by your sister-in-law, etc. So what do you guys think of this situation? For me personally, it leaves kind of a sour taste in my mouth afterwards. I feel like there's a lot more going on here than we're privy to, and I hope OP is okay. Do you guys have anything to add to this? Any different opinions? And what are your judgments for this one? I'd love to know down in the comments. Our next post is by user AmiTheA 3309703, titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my fiancée after she hid my glasses? Me, male 31, and my fiancée, female 26, have been together for 2.5 years, engaged for 4 months. We currently live together in an apartment an hour away from the hospital where my dad is staying. He has lung cancer, and his condition hasn't been improving, and I've been visiting him and my family whenever I can to see if they need anything from me. My fiancé's cousin's wedding was yesterday. I don't like attending weddings and large occasions, especially now that my dad is struggling, so I'm not really in the mood. But I decided to go anyway since my fiancé insisted. But I got a call from my mum wanting my help at the hospital. My fiancé heard me while I was talking on the phone and threw a fit when I told her that I can't go with her to the wedding because my mum needed me. She argued with me, but I told her to have some empathy and realized how much pressure she was putting me under. I noticed my glasses were missing, and without them, it was impossible for me to drive. I looked everywhere, and I couldn't find them, although I was certain I left them on the coffee table. I spent nearly an hour looking, and I was getting so frustrated. I didn't have a choice but to call my mum back and explain the issue I was dealing with, and apologize for not coming. Thankfully, she said she would call my sister, and the call ended. In exactly 10 minutes after the call ended, my fiancée walked out of the bedroom wearing her dress and holding my glasses in her hands, telling me to get ready to go to her cousin's wedding. I was stunned. I knew she hid them because when I asked where she found them, she said they were on the nightstand. But I looked there and I couldn't find them. I literally yelled at her for pulling this nonsense so that I won't go to the hospital and go with her to the wedding instead. I told her I won't go after this. And she yelled back and said that my family are treating me like a doormat by constantly asking me to come and taking advantage of me. She said that I should let someone else deal with their never-ending problems and focus on us. She tried to convince me, but I still refused because I was so pissed. I took my glasses and I left immediately. I didn't find her home, and I started getting texts from her mum wanting to know what was wrong. But I haven't replied to her, thinking she'll instantly take her side. I don't really have all too much to say about this situation. I think it's pretty obvious that the fiancé took the glasses away from you, and you have a dying family member, and yet she doesn't care. That should be pretty telling, and it should show you where her priorities are at. And this is definitely a situation that warrants a long conversation about why she did what she did, and why you're feeling what you're feeling, and why what she did was wrong on so many levels. A wedding is nowhere near as important as being there for a loved one when they're dying, especially of cancer. That's just not okay. Not the a-hole OP. Lingering in Space says, "Not the a-hole. Your dad is dying of cancer, and she did this when your mother needed you? Dump her. She has some serious issues. Don't let this slide or something worse will happen." Yeah, she has a serious lack of social awareness here. That has nothing to do with social awareness, and everything to do with extreme self-centeredness and lack of empathy. What a terrible thing to do. I rarely jump on the dump them train, but in this case, she has shown such a breathtaking lack of respect for OP, his choices, his emotions, his autonomy, and so blatantly. This isn't someone you want in your life. And removing access to an assistance device OP needs to navigate day-to-day life so that she can get what she wants is so manipulative and abusive. Holy crap. OP, run. Abusive. I really want to highlight this. She took advantage of a disability. Would she have hid the wheelchair of someone who was paraplegic? This is straight up abuse. Arthritis says, "Not the a-hole. She stole your glasses from you for attention for an event, while your father is struggling and your family is asking for your help. Even if your family was treating you like a doormat, which it doesn't seem like from how you described it, she shouldn't have taken your glasses to prevent you from leaving. I don't know why she thinks I'm a doormat just because I'm standing by my dad's side and supporting him through these difficult times. Lung cancer is the worst, and it's so hard to see him struggle. Well, that's because she's selfish, and she thinks insulting you will get you to do what she wants. Play the tape forward, and imagine what will happen if you marry this woman. Do you think she'll be supportive and understanding that if your dad's condition gets worse, you'll be spending more and more time at the hospital? Do you think she'll drop any plans she had to rush to you if you need her? Do you want her next to you at his, or any other's, funeral? If you have to handle legal stuff after your dad passes, will she be patient and understanding? Does she understand that the grief of losing a parent can take years to manage? That you will be sad not only on important days like his birthday and Christmas, but on just random days when it hits you? Will she stop being a person who expects you to care for her and just be there to care for you? I'm so sorry about your dad. And now I pass it to you guys. What do you guys think about this one? And if you are dealing with grief from your parents passing, I'm sorry if this brought up any emotions, but I do hope that hearing from others and their battles with the same thing can help you a little bit. It's always nice to have someone that understands. If you're in this situation, would you have broken up with this woman? And why do you think that she did what she did? Do you think these comments talking about her psyche and her reasoning for things are accurate? And I guess, would you stay if you're in this situation? Sorry if I repeated that. I'd love to know any and all thoughts down in the comments below. And what do you judge this one? And our next post is by user Happy Chinook Cad 7 Morty, titled, Am I the a-hole for making a big deal about 1 extra credit point on my child's test? So my daughter had a spelling test, which included some holiday words for extra credits. One of the words was Chanukah. My daughter spelt it the way I just did, but the teacher marked it wrong and corrected it to Hanukkah. She said to my daughter, "You are Jewish and you don't know how to spell Hanukkah?" I think she meant it jokingly, but my daughter was annoyed. My daughter told the teacher that Chanukah is correct, but the teacher didn't believe her. I told the teacher that Chanukah was also correct, and that my daughter should get the point, and the teacher argued with me, saying that Hanukkah is more correct because it's more commonly used than Chanukah. I said if any spelling is more correct, it would be Chanukah, because the CH represents the sound from the back of your throat that you're supposed to make. The teacher agreed to correct the test, but seemed really sour about it, and said she was just trying to be inclusive. I said I appreciate that, but she should keep in mind that if the word isn't in English, that there might be multiple acceptable spellings for it, and that they should all be given credit. My husband says I overreacted. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have bothered so much if the word was something else, but I resented the teacher, who isn't Jewish, arguing with me and my daughter about how to spell our own holiday. I can understand where you're coming from for this one. If you are Jewish, and that is how you spell it, it's not particularly inclusive to be excluding your daughter from spelling it the way that she's used to and the way that she's always known. I think this teacher needs to be very careful with the way that they're approaching situations like this, because this definitely didn't seem inclusive at all. But again, I can apply Hanlon's razor to this one. I don't think it was malicious. I think the teacher was just being an airhead and didn't understand. It was just a bit of an obtuse moment. We all have that. And as long as the teacher understands, then it's all good and we can move on from this one. But I do think them pushing the point so far makes them an asshole. OP was in the right for defending themselves and defending their own culture, and I can't blame them for what they've done. So, not the a-hole. Trainier86 says, not the a-hole. You didn't make a big deal about 1 credit point. You made a big deal out of a teacher that incorrectly told your kid that she was wrong when she wasn't, and she wouldn't listen to your daughter's explanation. You just taught your daughter that if she's being treated unfairly, you have her back. You did well. PornDragon77 replies, I wish my parents stood up for me when, in a test I wrote, the days of the week starting from Monday instead of Sunday. The teacher's explanation was that weeks start from Sunday. I'm still sour about it after 20 years, and that is the reason why all my electronic calendars start from Monday. Also, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, lol. My own Jewish blood boiled at the thought of a non-Jewish teacher thinking it's inclusive to mark a Jewish child's transliteration of a Hebrew word wrong. Edit. Apparently non-Yiddish speakers think goy is a slur, so I'm removing it so y'all can get out of your feelings. Teacher was like, I'm so woke for including this. Except, You can't argue that you were being inclusive when you were arguing about culture with someone from that culture disagreeing with you. A funny example. My 6-year-old loves one of the songs from Moana that has a language that I don't speak. It's a Polynesian language. I am not sure which. She wanted me to sing and put it online. I explained that while I want to learn the words and have fun with it, it can be insensitive to post such a thing. Because it doesn't seem like learning, it seems like poking fun of the language. She told me that she didn't think that was offensive. I explained that she and I didn't get to make that call. It isn't my culture, so I am going to approach it with openness and sensitivity. Sure, blurting out gibberish for the opening of The Lion King was fun, but I imagine anyone who speaks Swahili was rolling their eyes. Genuinely making an effort to learn is never regarded as insensitive by anyone whose opinions carry any weight. Only an insane person would think that you were being offensive by learning and singing a song. That said, the amount of hell you'd get from a tiny minority of crazies who do care would be severe enough that I don't fault you for choosing not to play that game. And Adept1819 says, "Not the a-hole. And what? Your teacher, who is not Jewish, is lecturing you and your Jewish family on the correct spelling of a holiday that she doesn't celebrate? You handled it far more calmly than I would have." Our first post is by user Rena Frost, titled, "Am I the a-hole for getting my niece's teacher in trouble?" Now, I don't think I'm the a-hole, but I figured I would ask. Both my sister and brother-in-law work during the week, with my brother-in-law being off Tuesday and Thursday. My sister is only off on weekends, so they needed someone to watch their kid during the days on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My class schedule allows for me to watch my niece those days, as my classes are online, so I can watch her during the school day. So at the beginning of the school year, my sister emailed the teacher of my niece, 7, that I would be the one assisting and watching the kid, as I stated above, and gave permission that she could pass along information on what assignments are due or how to do it, but that if she had a problem, she could email my sister or talk to my brother-in-law on the days that he is off. The teacher responded, and we didn't have any trouble until recently. My niece does her classwork in my sister's office, as it has less distractions for her. I sit in the corner of the room at my sister's desk out of view of the camera, where I can keep an eye on my niece at the desk while doing my own work. My niece has a learning disability, so she needs to be monitored constantly. Well, yesterday my niece got distracted as usual, and the few times that I told her to pay attention didn't work. So I got up from my seat and went over to her and gently touched her shoulder and told her to focus. I was on the camera for maybe 10 seconds at most. Well, after class, the teacher called for my niece's parents and I walked over to respond. She asked where they were, and I informed her that both sister and brother-in-law were at work and that I could take a message. She refused and said she would email my sister, but that she wanted to talk to me. The teacher told me that I had bothered my niece and should have stayed out of the camera view. I apologized and said I didn't mean to stir any trouble, and that I was just trying to get my niece back on track. I asked a few questions about the assignments that were due that day, and she refused to tell me. She stated that I was a stranger, and she didn't have permission to tell that information. I informed her that she did have permission, as my sister had sent that email stating so. She said my niece could have her parents help her with the homework. Mind you that this homework was due by a certain time, and neither of them got home until way after it was due. I tried telling her this, but she wouldn't listen and ended the meeting. My sister got an email from the teacher scolding her for letting a stranger help my niece with class, and that as my niece's parents, they should be the ones watching her and assisting with class. She furthermore went on to say that I was distracting my niece, and that I appeared on camera view on purpose to disrupt her class. My sister flipped and emailed the principal, and the teacher got reprimanded. And this morning at class, the teacher mentioned in passing that I had gotten her in trouble, and it was rude of me to not talk to her about this stuff. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for getting my niece's teacher in trouble? Edit, the principal has been informed of the snide comments the teacher made during my niece's class on Monday. My brother-in-law scheduled a meeting with the principal for Thursday via Zoom, and I have been asked to join since this issue includes me. I don't think so. I don't think that you particularly did anything wrong in this situation. There was an email sent, all the protocols were followed, and yet this problem still happened with this teacher. I don't see in what universe this makes you the problem. This is just completely fabricated in the teacher's head, and she needs to get a grip. She deserved to get in trouble for what she did. I'm gonna go with not the a-hole for this one. Ashes Caribbean says, not the a-hole. I'm disgusted by that teacher. I'm sure she's learned her lesson. I don't think she has really, as she had a nasty comment next time she saw OP. And OP replies, hopefully she learned. Raccoon Piss Golf Cart says, not the a-hole. I was ready to say no a-holes here, cause everyone is tense. Teachers can have a lot of potential communication restrictions and moving parts to keep track of. And I don't blame them for maybe spacing on an email and being cautious who they give information to initially, especially given the stress of the new times. Calling you out for getting her in trouble after the fact was definitely asshole-ish though. I hope your sister was firm, as she had every right to be, but wasn't super harsh. I hope this will all blow over and be nothing in the long run. Everyone is learning and needs some leniency. My sister wasn't harsh, but she did lecture the teacher in a long email. That's fair and all. She had every right to set the record straight. Lecturing might be a bit strong, but I'd extend leniency to your sister in stressed out times as well. Either way, you personally handled all that just fine, so definitely not the a-hole. And OP replied, I tried to tell my sister to let it go. I get this year is tough, and I really didn't want to stir any trouble. You didn't stir any trouble with anything you did, and hopefully the teacher forgets it all, and you can all move on. It was petty of her to say that to you, but perhaps she's not a monster and just had a low moment. If this situation escalates, it's not on your hands, and if you don't have confidence in either your sister or the teacher to let this go and smooth it over after giving it some time, just bow out. I don't want to speculate or say it'll come to that, and this sub is really fast to tell people to cut off everything when things get remotely tough. But if nothing improves within a reasonable time, end the arrangement. My sister already said for me to report her about the behavior if it continues. The teacher is well aware my sister won't hesitate to get her reprimanded again. Sounds like you guys are all on the same page. Hopefully this was nothing more than a hiccup. Best of luck to you all. Yeah, we are all on the same page, and I hope it goes well too. And Evil Nala says, not the a-hole. Teacher was way out of line in several ways. Most of the issues have been covered by other commenters, but also, niece is entitled to reasonable accommodation of her learning disability, and having a relative or other caretaker monitor her online school and quickly redirect her if necessary is pretty much always a reasonable accommodation. Teacher making a big deal of it, then doubling down and also refusing to give directions for the assignment in time to actually allow you to help your niece complete the assignment is a major breach of niece's right to education. In short, yes, teacher got herself in trouble, you did right by your niece. And now on to the update. So a couple of people asked for an update on am I the a-hole for getting my niece's teacher in trouble, and I figured I could give a quick update. At first, the principal refused to hold a conference that my sister requested, but he changed his tune quickly when my sister in all of her glory had sent the email to the principal saying he better listen to both sides of the story or she would unleash all 7 levels of hell upon the school in the form of lawsuits, which my sister said she had the right to do. My brother-in-law, sister, me, the principal, and the teacher to discuss what transpired. The principal had the teacher explain her side first. She told the principal how I had interrupted her class on purpose and distracted my niece from her classwork. I then told my side and mentioned the side comment that she had made to me the very next time that I was with my niece. At first, the principal said that there was no concrete proof of what had happened, and it was basically my word against hers. The teacher looked so smug at this, but that fell quickly when we mentioned the class had been recorded. One of my niece's accommodations while doing online classes is the lessons are recorded so she can rewatch them to better understand the lesson, and the 2 days worth of videos caught the teacher red-handed in her lies and shows what happened. Well, in the end, with the proof from the class recording, it was enough to get the teacher beyond just in trouble. She was fired. Apparently other parents had complained about this teacher, but they didn't have the proof to prove it until my niece's accommodation caught it. As of now, they have a substitute teacher filling in until they can find a new teacher, which, according to the principal, should be ready to teach in 2 weeks' time. That is all that happened. The teacher went in thinking she wouldn't get in trouble, but we managed to get her fired and get justice for all the other people who had complained about her. Character teacher says, "That type of jerk has no business being an educator. Thanks for the update." I agree 100%. I didn't realize how many parents or helpers complained about her until the principal mentioned it in passing. It's so odd that the principal initially refused to meet and was prepared to say that it was your word against hers, knowing she had a history of complaints. He hasn't been doing his job either. I agree. It took my sister sending him a few emails to even get him to scold the teacher the first time for refusing to answer my questions about that one assignment when I had permission. That school is crappy, but it's the only one she can go to. And Chat on the Danger says, "Good. Teachers like that can end up ruining the school experience for a lot of children. Also a lesson for the teacher. Don't start shit, won't be shit." I joked with my sister that she started shit with the wrong family. I'm not afraid to tell my sister what her teacher did, and my sister is not afraid to raise hell. Your sister sounds awesome, and like a good person to have in your corner. She is, and if I was ever in a fight, she is the one that I would choose to be in my corner. OP is awesome too. Niece is very lucky to have so many people ready to stand up for her. This just reminds me of all the people who say some teachers aren't actually interested in teaching. They just want to control everything. I hate that so many parents complained about her, yet without solid proof, how the F are kids meant to get that, nothing was done. And now I ask you guys, have you guys had experiences like this in your life before? What did you think of this update and the initial story? Do you think the teacher got off too easy for this situation? And what's your judgment? Who's the a-hole here? And did it change with the update? I'd love to know down in the comments. Our next post is by user Lineeth, titled, "Am I the a-hole for having a puppy?" So I moved in this apartment 4 years ago with my boyfriend. Mine and neighbours' living rooms share a wall. Our daily routine consists of leaving for work at 8 AM and returning always after 8 PM. When we get home, we cook dinner, eat while watching something on TV, and then we browse our phones and talk/whatever until we go to bed at midnight. When we moved in, our landlords warned us about the next door neighbour because they don't get along at all. My landlords are a lesbian couple, and the neighbours are an elderly couple, and that they had already made previous tenants leave. And so it begins. On the first week, as we got home, the old man decides to open his door and demands that we stop the noise and stop moving furniture around. I politely told him that we were just then getting home, and he closed the door in our faces. A few weeks go by, and we decide to celebrate my father-in-law's birthday at our home, and at 10 PM on a Saturday night, as we were singing Happy Birthday, he angrily knocks on our door and tells us to keep the noise down. I tell him what the occasion is, and actually invited him in to see for himself that our families were here. In a few occasions, we invited friends, always before 11 PM on weekends, and we just like to talk, each one at a time at a normal tone of voice, but he would always hit on the wall a couple of times. This caused me to never want to invite anyone again, not even my family, nor my friends, anyone. It made me fear listening to music. It made me not let my boyfriend invite anyone over ever because I always have a panic attack at the thought of someone visiting. I fear that he will do something to our car while we are sleeping. We always wanted to have a dog and know the challenges, but we were postponing this until we could move out to a rental with a little backyard. But now I'm working from home, and a beautiful puppy came up. She was severely mistreated by her brothers and was in need of help and a loving home, so we decided to do it. I'm at home anyway, I can use the exercise the walks will provide me, and I have the time to train the puppy. I wanted to use this opportunity to overcome my fear of making noise, since we feel we never did anything wrong and didn't disrespect anyone. Our puppy has been here for 4 days, and she was very shy and sad. She's just now starting to open up to us. So, as we were having lunch at 1 p.m, she barked twice. That was it. Instant furious hitting on the wall. I immediately had a panic attack and started crying. My boyfriend wanted to go there and talk to him. He always wants to, but I always ask him not to. But now I am afraid he tries to do something to our puppy. She's really small, has a lot to learn, and will bark sometimes. What am I going to do? There are no rentals right now where we live, and I am in constant fear again. Am I the asshole for adopting a dog? Is it possible that we really do make noise? First question, no, I don't think you're the asshole for adopting a dog. And second question, is it possible that we really do make noise? I think it may be possible that you do make noise, but if you're living in accommodation where people are in your close surrounds, it's inevitable that noise is going to be made from either side. You have anxiety and fear about these folks, and I can't blame you for that, though I don't know a good solution to their threats and what they do, besides doubling down and being just as crazy as they are, and aggressively dominating them. That's obviously not an option for you, but it would be something that I would do for sure. I mean, after all, options are expended, like trying to reason with them, trying to bargain with them, being like, what's the problem? Go through every avenue first before you be crazy. I don't know how you're going to approach this situation, but for your current actions, no, you're not the a-hole. You're allowed to have a puppy. You know, it's all good. They're the ones with the problem. They suck. Mercer Hackett says, stop using anxiety as an excuse to not solve this glaring problem. You might be too anxious to do anything, but your boyfriend is not. Accept help when it is offered, not the a-hole. McCant says, not the a-hole. You let this guy rule your life too much. You need to delegate Mr. Crank to someone else. Husband, super, landlord, even the police if necessary. Say, it's 9 o'clock and we are speaking in ordinary indoor voices. That's not a reasonable request. We will be quiet from 11 a.m. to 7 a.m. If you have a problem with that, you need to discuss with the super. Tooth Fairy Assistant says, I mean, they warned you. You can't expect them to change. You either deal with it, stand your ground and live your life and not cater to your elderly, grumpy neighbors, move. Also, why aren't the landlords stepping in? They are tenants as well, so also have to abide by the rules. My landlords are currently working abroad, so there is no way they can be of help, and these neighbors have badmouthed my landlords to everyone, which definitely doesn't help the case. As for us, we get along with everyone, and even try to be polite and civil with this couple. I guess I have to cross my fingers and hope that some rental comes up. Or grow a spine and tell them to behave. You don't need to be rude. Simply state it is unreasonable for him to bang your wall constantly. You're not living next door to Jack the Ripper here. If you also don't have a garden, how would he be able to harm your dog? If you really can't do it, let your boyfriend handle it, or write a letter and send a copy to your landlord's email as well. Cowering in your flat will solve nothing. You're the a-hole if you do nothing. He could harm my dog because our balconies are close, and he would be able to throw poisoned food if he wanted. She is so little that she wouldn't know that she isn't supposed to eat whatever she finds. I only let her have access to the balcony while I'm home, but still, it worries me. Anyway, you're right. Cowering doesn't solve anything. And now on to the update. So I've made this post 4 months ago, and it didn't have much visibility, but had enough feedback to make me change my approach, and some developments happened, so I'd like to give a little update. So occasional barking ensued during playtime and zoomy time during the day, and the old man surely made his disapproval known by banging on the walls again. I just exploded. I went blind. What followed is, to this day, described by my significant other as the most eloquent yelled speech I've ever done in my life. I don't even remember what I said exactly. The point is, I yelled through the wall and gave him many options to solve his problem. Not my proudest moment, as I should have done it face to face without yelling, but guess what? It worked. I even got over my anxiety of having people over and making normal human noises during the day. One day I crossed paths with the neighbor's wife. She seemed to be a lovely woman and their toddler granddaughter, and the wife was devastated because the old man berated the kid for not holding it enough to get to the bathroom. What kind of person does that? A few weeks later, an awesome rental, townhouse, appeared in my area. We were able to negotiate the price by being in charge of all the cleaning and renovations needed, and we've officially moved last week. My puppy now has a backyard to run and play, the house is much more spacious and comfy, almost all neighbors have dogs and are friendly, and I can't hear a sound coming from anywhere. Goodbye annoying freeway noises. I still wake up in the middle of the night, and I can hear the silence. I only realize I'm actually home because I hear my significant other snoring next to me. After talking about the move to some acquaintances, I found out that my old neighbor also had a really bad reputation of having lived in several apartments in the area and always having this attitude, driving several people to move away. I think he should just move to the middle of the woods or something. Not my problem anymore. Anyway, it all went well. I had the chance to put him in his place, and now we're moved out and happier than ever. Thank you to the few people who gave me some input and made me realize we had to put on our grown-up pants. Says, nice hearing a good outcome. 1 unit tyrant, that old grouch. Enjoy your new place. Thank you. Finally have a place that feels like home. It's so wonderful you gave that jerk a piece of your mind. I wouldn't have waited that long to do it. I'd have told them off the 3rd time it happened, and that every time he hit the wall, I'd go smack his door with my boots. I get not wanting to have noise, but it's unreasonable to expect an animal to make no noise. More unreasonable to not expect someone to have family and friends over every now and again. That's the type of guy who's going to end up alone because no one can stand his bullshit. Soulless Ginger 93 says, so he wasn't just an arsehole to his neighbors, but to his own family too. Indeed. Sometimes he would have his son's wife and granddaughter over, and he would be sitting outside on the balcony by himself. I would cross paths with them on the stairs, and they were very polite. The little girl loved my puppy. I think he's just an old, bitter man. Our first post is by user Dugout34, titled, Am I the a-hole for blaming my dad for bringing my stepbrother into my life? My wife had an affair with him. My wife had an affair with my stepbrother. It was possibly the single most devastating thing that I've been through. My marriage is over, and everything is wrapped up money-wise. But I have a lot of anger and resentment at my dad for even bringing this piece of shit that is my stepbrother into my life. He was always a negative presence in our family, and I've complained to my dad numerous times as to how our stepbrother was awful to my sister and myself. But my dad turned a blind eye because he was desperate to keep the sham of a family together. My dad has begged for forgiveness, but I no longer talk to him. My sister doesn't talk to him as well as an act of solidarity. I also told my granddad that I can no longer work in his company if my dad and stepbrother work there. I told him I was quitting. My granddad ended up firing my dad and my stepbrother instead, and he's cutting my dad out of his will because he saw how hurt I was by everything. He doesn't want my stepbrother to benefit from him in any way. My dad reached out recently to say that he is separating from his wife, so there will be zero link to my stepbrother. and if I would be open to talking to him. I said he was 15 years too late and stopped responding. Am I the a-hole for blaming my dad for playing a part in this? Unless you have more to say, this is not your dad's fault, and ruining your dad's life is not the way to go about this. It doesn't seem like your dad directly played a part in this. Yeah, maybe he introduced the stepbrother into your life, but he didn't set the stepbrother against you. He didn't, make your wife cheat on you. He didn't make the stepbrother pursue your wife. That's not your dad's fault. You're a terrible person for tearing apart your own father's life without any good reason to do so. It doesn't seem like he's the cause of your problems. I'm gonna go with you're the a-hole for this one. RR812 says, you're the a-hole. This has nothing to do with your dad bringing him into your life. This has to do with your ex-wife's commitment issues. Your stepbrother and ex-wife are the a-hole. The fact it took Granddad cutting the dad out of his will just goes to show he never cared about his kids. He was with stepmother for all this time, but as soon as he's about to lose money, he breaks it off? Please, that man is as selfish as they get. This is just speculation. There's nothing in the post that shows that it was his granddad cutting him out of the will that caused this, other than that it happened afterwards. You say it must have been about the money, like his wife's kids cheating with his son's wife and causing him to lose contact with most of his family couldn't cause enough strife to break up a marriage? It's far more likely to be that than anything else. I'm not going to give a judgment because there's too much OP is leaving out about what behaviors his dad tolerated from stepbrother to judge, and it may be that there is enough in there to justify cutting him off. But unless OP's dad supported stepbrother after the affair or helped cover it up, this is not his fault. He can't be blamed for the affair just because his marriage brought stepbrother into OP's life. So he might be justified in cutting him off, but not because of an affair that his dad played no part in. I'll agree in that the dad didn't cause the marriage to end, but I think the OP cutting off his dad was the culmination of 15 years of bad treatment, and this was the final blow. The dad ignored the OP and his sister regarding the stepbrother and encouraged them to continue meeting, likely being where OP's ex met the stepbrother. Dad didn't care about his children as long as he could play happy family. The affair by stepbrother, while not on the dad, was likely able to occur because of his own disregard for his kids and his encouragement to be in contact with his family. Only now, after being fired by his dad, grandfather, and losing his kids, is the dad willing to acknowledge that his actions resulted negatively on the family's life. It took a major blow to the dad's financial and family life to make him show any care towards his kids and their feelings. I think we see this often, with seemingly small events causing people to stop contact with others, but it is the culmination of events that cause this, not the single event itself. I don't know how fair it is, but it definitely isn't due to this issue alone. My thoughts exactly. Only reason he's divorcing his wife is because otherwise he'll lose his family and never get comfy job back. For grandfather and sister, they are not the a-hole. I think the dad is the bigger a-hole than the stepbrother for only wanting to cut contact after basically losing everything. OP, understandable rage. I guess that's one armchair speculation to think on. I don't think we can get any further details for this story, but I would love to know what your opinion is and where you think the backstory lies here. Who really is the a-hole in the situation? What do you think the truth is? I'd love to know down in the comments. Our next post is by user Black Forces Are Cool, titled, Am I the a-hole for not forgiving my uncle for telling me that I'm a product of an affair? So I, 19 male, am a product of an affair. I just learned this story around Easter of 2018. My dad had an affair that resulted in him getting his mistress pregnant and having me. My mum relied on him financially and already had 3 kids, including a newborn by him, so she stayed. My dad started a co-parenting relationship and ended the affair with the other woman. When I was around 2, my biological mother ran off. We think to her home country, but we really don't know. I honestly couldn't care less and don't have any desire to find her. After my biological mum left, my mum was willing to take me into her house and raise me as her own son. I'm sure this must have been hard for her, as I've seen a picture of my bio mother, and I'm a dead ringer for her, and even have the masculine version of her name. As I said, I didn't know this, and I only found out because I got into a public fight with my mum at our family's Easter dinner when I was 16. I couldn't tell you what it was about, but I do know the next day I got a call from my mum's brother who let me hear about how ungrateful I was being to the woman who raised me after my real mum abandoned me. Of course, I was confused and went to my parents who told me everything. The news broke me for so long. I felt like a stranger in my house and like a monster to my mum. My older brothers both knew, but my older sister did not, and our entire extended family knew about me. I shouldn't have learned about it this way. This is why I have never forgiven my uncle for telling me in anger. Apparently, he didn't know I didn't know, so almost everyone in our family, except my siblings, think I should forgive him. I saw him again last weekend, and I refused to accept his apology, which led to my cousins and aunt, and my dad, pressuring me to just forgive him. I didn't, and still haven't. Am I the a-hole? I don't buy this story for 1 second. I feel like everyone's covering up his quote-unquote mistake, if you want to call it that, and then expecting you to forgive him and accept his apology. This is a truly groundbreaking thing for you, and I'm surprised they didn't tell you earlier. They let this go on for 16 years. That is their fault, and that is a slip-up by them. I feel like that's wildly inappropriate to let that go on for so long. You have to know eventually, and that's way too late. I would say everyone else in this situation is the problem. You are not to be blamed for this. You are not to be blamed for your reaction, and you should not be forced to apologize. This is something I wouldn't apologize for, nor would I forgive. Not the a-hole. The Mirror's Truth says, not the a-hole. I don't buy this not knowing. It sounds like this adult man was intentionally trying to inflict as much damage as he could on a 16-year-old kid. You're a teenager. Of course you fought with your mum. What teen doesn't? You get over it and you move on. You don't call them to curse them out and lay life-altering news on them out of anger. You were right. This isn't how you should have found out. Even if the uncle truly believed that he knew, unlikely, it is still incredibly damaging to throw that in a kid's face. That's the same as telling an adopted kid that they have to spend every day being grateful that their parents rescued them. His comment was meant to make OP feel less like a real kid and like he owes his parents for parenting. And that's wrong and undermines their family dynamic. The uncle was going for an effect, and it's an irreversible one that he should have had no leverage or right in. I doubt he didn't know that you didn't know either. Seeing as you and your sister didn't know up until now, that's a conscious decision within the family. And he doesn't deserve your forgiveness. Oh, OP's dad and his side ganging up on OP to forgive the uncle? Gee, I wonder why. Who stands to gain from placating this awkward situation? OP, your anger is legitimate, and if you were to ever forgive your family members, it's on your time. More importantly, keep talking with the mother that raised you. You have some healing to do, and she's the person that needs to be part of the process. Slytherin Demigod says, not the a-hole. Even if he didn't know that you didn't know, he still has no good reason to hang that over your head. The uncle is a total asshole. That was not his news to share with OP. The purpose of revealing that information did not come from a place of care, but rather maliciousness. The uncle is transferring his frustration with the father to OP. And Erased Storm says, everyone sucks here. Your parents for not telling you the truth when literally everyone knew, except a sister, uncle for butting into something not his business, but not unreasonable of him to think that you knew, as it appeared to be public family knowledge, and you the least, because this sounds tragic, but the blame falls mostly on your parents here, not the uncle. So if you're going to hold a grudge, at least direct it to the right people. But like others said, why throw it in his face? How would he ever feel like he belongs if his family doesn't view him as family and uses that against him? He really should let others know why he isn't going to just forgive his uncle for his lame excuse, and his parents might have been waiting for when it was the best time to tell him. His siblings probably accidentally found out. Really, he just needs his mum's approval because she raised him and needs to let him know that he is still her son. His uncle needs a better apology. So what do you guys think? Is OP projecting their anger to the wrong person in this situation, and does that make them an a-hole for it? Or do you think this is completely justified? I'd love to know your opinions and your hot takes on this situation down in the comments below. Have you guys been in situations similar to this before? And what would you do in a situation like this? Our next post is by user ThrowAwayYJ, titled, "Am I the a-hole for accepting my dad's apology gift on behalf of both me and my wife?" This year, we had a Zoom Thanksgiving with my family, which consisted of my brother 49 male and his wife 26 female, and my dad 71 male and my stepmom 40 female. My dad has always been protective of me and my brother, and speaks out if he feels either of us are being treated badly by others. My wife, 46, had a hysterectomy 2 years ago because, after giving birth to our 4th child, doctors said she had endometriosis. After her hysterectomy, her personality completely changed. She was no longer as happy-go-lucky as she used to be, would spend hours laying in bed, and would refuse to dress up for social events or buy new clothes, period, because she said she could break out into sweats at any moment and soak her entire outfit. I understand her problems, and I never fault her for anything she says or does. However, my dad has expressed that he was uncomfortable about how snappy my wife has been to me, and that she always looked like she's been dragged to social events that we attend against her will. Underdressed, hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. During our Thanksgiving dinner, my brother and his wife of 3 years were talking about a new construction project that he was overseeing and I was consulting on. His wife was extremely excited and pumping him up about how he will employ so many people during a pandemic, and that he never fails to amaze in his results. My dad asked my wife what she thought, and when she gave a non-committal response, they got into an argument. My dad called my wife a wet blanket who didn't support anything that I did, and my wife called him a misogynist who left my mum alone and destitute. My dad said that I could do so much better, and that my wife should be more like my brother's wife, who is always dressed to the nines and is very physically affectionate with him in public, who he said was always put together, happy, and supportive. To which my wife replied that he probably has never tolerated a woman during menopause, but he acts worse than menopausal women. I ended the Zoom after he said that she should at least try harder to keep you. I was very angry. But it's been a while, and my dad has been texting me about how sorry he was and that he was drunk. I thought that my wife had cooled off as well. Yesterday, a package arrived and inside was a sorry note from my dad. He had gifted me a new watch and a coffee machine we wanted to get for our family. I brought the gifts inside and ended up texting him and my stepmom in the family group chat. I simply said thanks for the gifts from our family. My wife was furious that I accepted gifts from my father, and even angrier when I showed her the note. She said she does not accept the apology and that she doesn't want the gifts. I told her I didn't really know what the big deal was because families give each other gifts, and he's still my father, and she herself said that she was going to have to talk to him eventually. So, am I the a-hole? I think so, yeah. I do think you suck for this situation. You chose not to talk to her, and I think you know willingly that this wouldn't have gone down well if you did talk to her and discuss the gifts. I think you wanted to sweep this under the rug and kind of force an apology out of her by saying, look, I already said it. We don't have to take this any further. We don't have to have more conflict. It's better this way. I think you're a coward and spineless for doing this, OP. I think personally you need to listen to your wife, give the gifts back, and explain that there is some, adjustments that need to be made in this relationship with your father. As it stands currently, you're the a-hole, and I feel bad for your wife, I really do. Broad Elderberry says, you're the a-hole. First of all, your wife has had 4 kids with endometriosis. I have endo, and I've already refused to put my body through that because the pain is too much. And it's not worth increasing my risk of cancer just to have biological kids. Did you know that, by the way? That cancer can be a side effect of endometriosis, especially if it's untreated. And then, her endometriosis progressed to the point where she had to have a hysterectomy. That is not only a physically strenuous process, but an emotional one as well. Your wife's body can no longer regulate her hormones correctly. It's just, oh, it's menopause. She's a little bit hot and tired. Unless she's on some serious hormone replacement drugs, she has very little control over her mood or even her own body. And if she is on the drugs, then she has to deal with the side effects. After all of that, and what your wife went through and is going through, your father put her down because she's not as sexy and perky as a 26-year-old. And you said not one word to defend her. You are not owed an apology. You are not the one who was grossly offended. You have no power to accept the apology. Your father's apologies mean fuck all because they weren't given directly towards your wife. Edit to add, the whole endo increases your risk for cancer seems to be scaring people. I'm sorry about that, it's what my obgyn told me, so I assumed that it was commonly known amongst us endo peeps. And also in Australia we say obgyn. It's not a common phrase, but it's much better than saying, my OBGYN told me this and my OBGYN told me that. What a mouthful. Anyway, Sister to the Rain 9 says, why is it a pattern for the men in your family to marry women 20 plus years their junior? Also, you're the a-hole, but the reasons why have been so thoroughly elaborated on that I'm gonna save my fingers. And then for the dad to say, you should be more like the other wife that is 20 years younger than you. That dad is an a-hole and a misogynist. I feel like that about covers it. Do you guys have anything else to add on to this in the comments? Because I personally don't. I feel like all bases have been covered here. I feel like it's a thoroughly you're the a-hole diagnosis. I would love to know your opinions down in the comments though. And our last post is by user throwaway account lol, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my brother's girlfriends to F off? Okay, I'm using a throwaway for personal reasons, and I'm on mobile, so sorry for format. I, female 18, have 5 brothers, Cal, Leo, Ben, Kai, Jay, and I'm the only girl. My mum isn't around, but that's a story for another day. It's just been the 6 of us and my dad since I was about 6. Just to paint a clear enough picture, we all live at home, plus Jay's girlfriend, May. So Kai has been dating his girlfriend, female 21, who I'll call S, for nearly 8 months, and she's hated me since the beginning. When she started coming around, she would always give me dirty looks, make nasty comments about my outfits, etc. 4 months in, she started to sexualize anything I did with my brothers. I would give them a small hug when leaving and say I love you. I didn't see anything wrong with that. She said that it was weird that I was 18 and still hugging my brothers and my dad shouldn't give me a kiss in the forehead because only couples do that. She said it looked dirty, and she didn't feel comfortable with the hugs, so Kai stopped allowing me to hug him, and when I say I love you, he doesn't say it back anymore. At one point, Jay and May had spoken up on my behalf because she was being a complete bitch to me. May said S was the only person who sees anything wrong with how we are, and she was disgusting. No one in our house likes her. Today, S came into my room without knocking and saw that I was lying down in an old shirt of Kai's, as they give me their old shirts sometimes. If the shirt is long enough, I'll sleep in just the shirt, which I was doing, but I always make sure my door is closed, and if it isn't, I wear shorts or stay under my blanket. She got upset, saying that I needed to stop trying to be so close with Kai, that it wasn't normal sibling behavior. I reminded her she walked into my room, not giving me enough time to cover up, plus it was a complete invasion of my privacy, and I didn't see how I was trying to be close when I was only wearing his old shirt. I finally had enough when she said I was an attention seeker, and I dressed provocatively around my brothers and dad to get their attention. She topped it off with, "I don't see how May could live here because of how needy you act." So I told her to fuck off and that there was something mentally wrong with her. Now is where I ask if I am the a-hole because Kai is mad at me, saying that she was having a bad day and I should have taken her feelings into consideration. He was at work when it happened, but May was home alone with Cal and they heard it all go down. They backed me up, but my brother thinks I should still apologize for being mean and shutting the door in her face. He hasn't talked to me since it happened either. Edit. A lot of people are asking about my dad, and I realize I hadn't said much about him, but he isn't around much, to be honest. He works a lot, so he's only ever present for less than 10% of her BS. And a lot of you also think I should talk to him or have a family meeting. And I'll try to talk to everyone around dinner maybe. A big thank you to everyone who's replied too. Edit 2. Someone mentioned sitting down with Jay's girlfriend, May, and talking to Kai, which I totally like. And if by some dumb reason he still doesn't believe S is in the wrong, I'll just send him the link to this post and call it a day. I guess I didn't really need that edit 2 there, but yeah, I do think a meeting and talking this out between all of you guys is the go here. It may not solve the problem, but at least it'll show that you tried to solve this problem, which is a good step in the right direction, which could mean, someone leaving the household, relationships being broken, or at least just coming to an understanding. To me, it seems obvious that she's the one sexualizing all these situations, and she's the one coming into your room, making a problem. You've really done nothing wrong. It's been a normal family tradition for you to hug your brothers, and to have a kiss on the forehead goodbye. That's fine. Some people may think it's weird, but she's taking it a step further, or an entire fucking football field further, by coming in and saying, "That's gross, I don't agree with this, there's something wrong with your family." That's just so disrespectful and not asked for. It's really not on to do that. So I can't blame you for anything you've done in this story. I'm not judging you for it. I think you've done right to defend yourself. Not the a-hole. Mr. I Fart A Lot Too says, while legally you are all considered adults, your father as the parent and presumed house owner should have nipped this in the bud immediately. If I was your dad, I would have informed both Kai and his girlfriend that she was no longer permitted in my home, period. He would be welcome to move out if he didn't agree with me. Not the a-hole. Agreed. Not once was the father brought up and having done or said anything. Dad should have a talk with Kai and his girlfriend to get to the bottom of the issues the girlfriend has with OP. Completely agree. Where is the dad in all this? This girlfriend is an a-hole because she is sexualizing a teenager in her own family home with her own family, and actively working to break down familiar relationships. She is manipulative, obviously jealous of OP, and possibly trying to remove the brother out of his family unit. Not the a-hole. Just start loudly asking her what her obsession with incest is every time she talks to you, or why she feels the need to sexualize everything you do. OP should say, "Oh my god, why are you so obsessed with me?" every time the girlfriend says anything to her. Not sure that would help, but go off. Not the a-hole. His girlfriend is a jealous freak. Red flags all around. That one is going to be trouble. I totally agree. Not the a-hole. She sounds over the top and abusive, but her brother is too besotted to see it. Our first post is by user Stolen Ideas, titled, "Would I be the arsehole if I sue my sister-in-law for stealing my book and making a huge profit from it? I, 24 female, write as a hobby, and I like sharing my short stories with my small following. I do want to publish one day, but I want to make it perfect first since it's not edited yet. The unfinished book we're talking about came from an idea that I started to build when I was in middle school. I just finished it last year, but because of the virus, I was forced to put the project aside to ensure that steady employment with my day job. My brother and sister-in-law came to visit me to introduce their baby daughter about 6 months ago. Sister-in-law just thrusted her baby into my arms, even though I lack even the barest knowledge on how to hold a baby. The baby was fussy, and my brother helped calm her down while sister-in-law said she wanted to use the bathroom to pump breast milk. They left later, and I didn't think anything of it until recently, that I was told sister-in-law had published a book, and it had been a while since she published. Self-publish is not as time-consuming as traditional publishing. I don't doubt my sister-in-law's intelligence because she is a smart woman, but I've always heard how she dislikes books because they're boring and drag on. I wanted to show my support and brought a copy, only to realize it's way too similar to mine. I compared it to my copy of unpublished work, and it's obvious it's been edited and proofread for fluidity and clarity. I was angry, and I admit I overreacted by confronting her over the phone. She said my screaming was upsetting her and hung up on me. It was a back-and-forth battle with phone numbers to get to the truth. By this time, my parents and her parents are involved. So I'm gonna go with not the arsehole for this situation. I can see why you might think you are by blowing up over the phone to her, but that's just you being emotional and attacking her rightly. Heck, if I was in your shoes, I'd be pissed off too, and rightly so. That's just ridiculous. Your parents and her parents should be involved in this situation because they should slap her back down to earth and get her to realize, hey, you done goofed up, son. So for this situation, I think it's just how you are angry. No, you are not the a-hole for this. And OP provides at the top of the post, unnecessary edits because there are just too many ugly messages. To those who think it's fake because of incoherency, grammar, and structure, it's why editors and proofreaders exist. They are hired to fix the manuscript before publishing. I didn't proofread this, and that's my fault. I like to write, but I'm not a professional writer. English is my second language. To those who think it's impossible to make lots of profit from a one-time self-published book with an unheard-of author, sister-in-law has a decent following. When her followers buy the book, it climbs Amazon ranking, and that means it's more visible to other buyers interested in the same genre. I came here not for legal advice at first because I was struggling morally. I needed help, not to have people attack me in private messages and in the comments. House Addict says, "Look, you are 100% the wronged party here. However, before I cast judgment, let me try and give an alternative viewpoint. The damage is already done now, and how you proceed is going to have consequences for you. Now, if you sue her, it's going to cause a rift in your family, and to be honest, you are probably never going to forgive this anyway. So that's one thing to at least consider. That's not the most interesting thing though. The book is out there now, and it's gained some traction due to her social shit. If you had released it, you well know that it might never have gone anywhere. Or maybe it would. Now you also have this massive Reddit post. This, to me, is an opportunity to make something out of your work, and I think you should take it. Yes, you could soothe your anger with some tasty revenge, or you could try and make your million from it. I'm no author, but I reckon there's probably another book in this whole story here. It's mental. Anyway, food for thought, not the a-hole." Tsunami says, "Not the a-hole. As an aspiring writer, this makes me so angry. I would drown them in legal bills before cutting contact. My blood is boiling. CGY says, you were not ready to publish your work, and now it's out there without you having say on the final version. She stole your work, and when you try to publish in the future, you wouldn't even be able to claim that book as your work if you do nothing. She's an absolute fraud, and it doesn't matter what her intentions are. Not the a-hole your family may think you are, but they also didn't have their life's work stolen by sister-in-law. And now on to the update. Thank you everyone for giving me advice on how to proceed with this mess. After speaking with my pre-law friend, I decided to go the legal route. I reiterated my compromise with sister-in-law and my brother, but he has fully taken her side. My parents warned me that I'd be disowned and I'd be dead to them if I'm willing to stoop so low. I hired a lawyer and given all the details on my side. My lawyer said she needs my unedited manuscript for the book and my sister-in-law's published book, along with the copy the sister-in-law sent to have it proofread and edited. Because the published book has different parts changed. My lawyer needs the unedited version, which sister-in-law should still have in the transaction she did with her editor and proofreader. We took the risk to ask sister-in-law for the unedited copy that she sent to her editor and proofreader, despite the chance of having her feign, I don't remember their names, I don't have their contacts anymore, I don't want to, etc. I told sister-in-law that we will go through the route of having to use third-party notarization to ensure no foul play on either part. Have one individual look at my unedited manuscript and the one that she sent to her hired editor plus proofreader. Once I told her that, she must have realized I was not bluffing. Sister-in-law and brother accepted the compromise. I take the pseudonym and the royalties with evidence of sold copies. I stipulated that sister-in-law must put a message out to her followers on her blog that she stole from me, and not a single word in the book is hers. I thank the Redditors for suggesting that. She is clearly pissed off and disgusted with me for doing this to my own family. I threatened her with further legal proceedings if she doesn't do it. No lawsuit happened, but I'm glad I got a professional option just in case. As words got back to my parents of what I did, they said, how dare I get a lawyer to punish sister-in-law, because her blog followers will surely lose trust in her and future revenue. I told them and my parents that if they have anything to say, use my business email. I'm done with them. They treated an outsider, sister-in-law, 1 month into dating my brother, better than they ever did to me. I don't need that negativity dragging me down. I'm happier, more free with my opinions, and I don't have to feel the need to compete with everything sister-in-law does, just to get my parents to love me a little more than a daughter in name. I have my friends. They have always been more of a family unit to me than my biological ones. I knew I was going to lose something coming out of this, but I didn't expect I'd be okay with the disappointment and hurt. Thank you everyone, and no, I will not be telling anyone what the name of the book is, because I only came here to get a moral judgment and update everyone on what happened. Please don't think I'm using this for clout. The book will not be promoted on Reddit, not then, not now, and not in the future either. Catchy Phrase says, I am so proud of you. The most important takeaway from all this, and I've followed from the beginning, is that you acted in integrity with your values and a very boundaried person. Sorry your family doesn't have those same values, but you cannot control anyone else. I am very proud of you. Fluffles724 says, all you did was give her a consequence to her shitty actions. She stole, they defended shitty behavior, and tried to shame you for not excusing shitty behavior and piggybacking off your hard work. Congrats. I'm glad you turned out okay. Amrose1491 says, your parents should be ashamed of themselves. I'm glad you have friends to lean on, and thanks for the update. So I guess I throw it to you guys. What would you do in a situation like this if your work was stolen? Would you come after the sister with legal action? Would you go as far as OP did? And would you cut off your family for prioritizing her over you? Or do you think that everything done here was right and there's nothing better she could have done? I would love to know your opinions and your judgment down in the comments below. Thank you. Our next post is by user Throwaway GPRP, titled, "Am I the asshole for calling my sister out for putting me on a blind date and lying to the both of us about it?" To cut a very long story short, my sister put me on a blind date with a wonderful woman. I agreed to it reluctantly, but was pleasantly surprised on said date, as she was pretty much my type, and it was the best date I had been on in years. Here's the issue. The woman is 22, I'm 43. Now, this wouldn't have been an issue if we had just discussed this on the first date, but foolishly we didn't. For some reason, this conversation didn't come about for 3 months after the fact. Just for some context, the blind date was on Skype because of the current pandemic, and we only got to meet properly a few weeks ago. Nevertheless, I think due to being in lockdown, we both enjoyed having someone to talk to. So, where does my sister come into it? At no point did my sister ever mention the age gap was this big. When she said younger, I was presuming 30s, not barely out of high school. On the other side, my sister had told the woman in question that I was in my 30s, not 40s. My sister is 33, so I presume she just thought that we would be closer in age. Anyway, when this revelation came about recently, I was seething, and had it out with my sister for matching me with someone completely inappropriate, and for lying to both me and this woman that she claims to be a friend. She can't see anything wrong with it because, as far as she's concerned, we are both adults and we've been going well for the past few months. Not to mention that I should have asked myself and not presumed. My issue is the principle. You can't lie to people like that, especially as I don't date very often after my wife passed. Ooh, she claims she only did it because she knew I would have said no otherwise. So am I the asshole for having a go at her, or should I just be grateful for her kindness? Edit. Just to clarify, the woman I've been dating does pass for her late 20s, something even she herself confirms. I have only met her in person once, and the vast majority of the time we only called on the phone or texted due to our jobs having hectic schedules. There was no conversation about our childhoods or anything which led either of us to believe the age gap was this large. And just to make it clear, I'm not remotely comfortable with this gap, and my sister knew this. Well, I think that just makes it even clearer for me. I was leaning not the asshole before that extra information, and now that solidifies it for me. I feel like she knew that this wasn't worth setting up because once the truth came out, it would just collapse, and she let it go on for 3 months without that information coming out. Sure, yes, it's reasonable to assume that you're going to ask age while talking to each other for a little bit there, but it didn't happen, and the sister set you guys up knowing that you would not follow through with this relationship. I understand it's hard to move on after you have a wife that passes away on you, but setting someone up like this is not the right way to get them into the dating scene again. If anything, I feel like that just sets them back even longer, knowing now they can't trust their own sister who they would have been able to trust before. All of these emotions would be bubbling up to the surface for you, and you dealt with it pretty well. There's a lot more people that would deal with it much worse than you have, and that could tip them into everyone sucks here or you're the a-hole territory. OP, you sound like a wonderful, measured man, and I wish nothing but the best for you. That's why I'm going to go with not the asshole for this one. I completely see where you're coming from. Trent21 says, "Not the asshole. That's bonkers to me. Like, dating with an age gap is certainly doable, but a 20-year difference means you two are at a completely different stages in life and maturity. How did she not see that age would be an issue? A 20-year gap at 60 to 40 is one thing, and certainly there are age gap relationships that work, but a 22-year-old is so far away from 43. That's twice her age. Not the asshole at all. Age gaps can work. However, Blatantly not telling someone about how large of an age gap they have is insane, especially when she was the one who set them up. At least if they knew, they could make a decision based on that knowledge. Action Comics 25 says, "Not the asshole. Your sister set you two up, knowing it would be an issue for you, and I'm guessing the young lady she set you up with, which is undoubtedly an asshole move. The woman I've been dating apparently doesn't mind, but I'm still very much on the fence. 20-year age gaps just aren't appropriate. I think you should stand your ground about not taking this relationship further if you're on the fence in this early stage. As someone who has just recently come out of a relationship with such a big age gap, I started mine when I was 23 and he was 40. At first, that's usually what we think, that it's not a big deal. But as we grow a bit older, we tend to realize age gaps this big rarely work. It's just too many differences and completely opposite life stages. If you're not comfortable with this, then that's something that needs to be talked about with this woman. But your sister was in the wrong for lying about this, which she knew was a deal breaker. Not the asshole, but don't let this consume you. Your sister wants you to be happy, so she lied to try to nudge you along on a date. That was wrong, and she's an asshole for this, but only mildly so. Put your foot down with your sister and tell her that her meddling and dishonesty are counterproductive, and that if she wants you to be in a relationship, she's not helping by doing things like this. But don't let this hurt your sibling relationship too much. Sorry for the loss of your wife, and I hope you find happiness." And OP replies, "Thank you. That's very kind. Honestly, I'm furious at her because I feel like I was led into a non-starter." And now to our update. So, I've had quite a few people asking me for an update, which was very thoughtful, and I thought it would just be easier to share in case anyone else wished to know. First of all, thank you so much for the support and love. It really did help and made me feel very welcomed. Ultimately, I stuck to my guns and broke things off. Many of you asked how on earth I could have gone all that time without knowing her age. Well, that was because she knew my age and initially lied to me. Apparently, she and my sister had already had a conversation about my age and how it wouldn't be an issue for her. She then asked my sister if I knew, and my sister said, and I quote, "Just play along." When I found out about this, I just had enough from both of them and left them to their own devices. It has been about a month and my sister and I are simply not speaking. She tried to call me and tell me this was for my own good, but I just let her get on with it. I'm not necessarily mad at either of them, but I'm just done with them. The feelings I felt for the woman were more or less manufactured because she put on a persona which she knew I would be attracted to. Although it has been some time, I'm still exhausted by the whole situation, so I would prefer to keep my distance from the two of them. Nevertheless, thank you so much for those who replied and checked up on me. It meant a lot. For now, I'll just keep going on my own, but these things happen. Reddit and Twitter did prove that there were some decent people out there. Not necessarily saying the woman in question isn't decent, I just question her approach to this particular situation. Oh, and those saying a male widow is a widower? I'm very much aware of that, but after years of saying it and having foreign relatives not knowing the difference between the two, I stopped caring, as they both meant the exact same thing. A person who had lost their spouse. Slagathor in the comments says, "I am very sorry that this happened to you. That is so deceitful, especially because you come out looking like the creep if she ever told this story. Not all women are like this, and I wish you the very best in the future. Onwards and upwards." Sir Kalena says, "I'm sorry that you were lied to like this. How could either of them think that you could build a relationship on deceit? I'm glad you are doing better now, and to be honest, not speaking to your sister until she understands, apologizes, and you are ready is absolutely justified. I'm glad this hasn't wrecked your opinion of all people." That's the immaturity of youth, I suppose, although she's kind of trapped. If she tells him her age, he won't date her because she's too young for him. If she doesn't, the lie proves she's too immature to be dating him. It is, as they say, a catch-22. The brass dancer says, "Your sister's deceit potentially could have led to so many dire consequences for you. Whilst morally there is nothing wrong with such an age gap, your personal objection to it should have sufficed." Sadly, despite the above, societal views of age gap relationships mean there is still considerable stigma, especially in the case of older men dating younger women. That obviously includes the misconceptions of dirty old men and sugar daddies, as well as gold diggers and daddy issues. Even if you and the woman had agreed to take things further, these stigmas would prevail and be yet another obstacle to overcome. Your sister clearly had no forethought here. She could have caused a lot of problems for both of you. This potentially would have affected your personal and professional reputations. Obviously, in no way do I advocate for this kind of malicious gossip and hearsay, and the judgments from others outside of the box which are born of such. But while these stigmas unjustifiably exist, so do the risks to the individual's reputations. And I think that's a good comment to end today's episode on, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please do tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below. What would you do in this situation? I feel like I would probably do exactly what OP did. And what's your thoughts on such a big age gap? Would you be okay with being 43 and dating a 22-year-old? Is that too much for you? Or, would it be cooler to see bigger age gaps? I've personally not seen dating, but I have seen a 22-year-old and a 60-year-old hooking up on the regular. That's odd to me, but I'm glad that some people can get along like that. It's very interesting. I can definitely see where questionable morals come into play for these situations, and the more I read, the more insight I get, and the more fine-tuned my opinion becomes. That's what I like about covering this content, because I'm always changing my mind on things. And even though I have stupid opinions for one video, I see comments, and then I learn from those mistakes and I refine it as such to become a more societally acceptable one. Or flaws in my thinking will be shown and I will identify those and see where I can improve it in the future. What are your judgments for today's stories, guys? What did you think of them? And what about this situation? Who's the a-hole in it? Because I feel like it's clear-cut OP, but there's definitely ways it could be not the a-hole or no a-holes here, if some events hadn't happened, I guess. But everyone's different. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you loved it and you're not subscribed yet, sometimes YouTube does unsubscribe you. You can go check that subscribe box, see if it's still working. Who knows? I hope you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.